This is in part for the people who weren't able to be here today. This is Katie Mashevsky. She is an advanced student here in the School of Education. She's going to take you through her multimedia representation of teaching that has become her student teaching portfolio, but which she began here in 216. Take it away, Katie.
I did. So what you see right here on the homepage is actually what my MRT looked like in 216. I decided to stick with it. I stuck with the flower theme, and I even kept my homepage the same. So what you see here was all created in 216, which, let me tell you, was fabulous because it was one less thing for me to do this semester because portfolio is kind of a big deal. So the organization of my portfolio has changed a lot since 216, though. That's one thing that was different. If you look up here, you'll see that there's a tab called the Garden of Artifacts, which I just named Garden to go with my floral theme. I thought it was fitting. But when I was in your class, it was organized by standard. This tab was called Wisconsin Teaching Standards, and I had the 10 standards laid out right there because that was really all I had to organize my thoughts at that time. I hadn't taken as many classes as I did, and I didn't have as many artifacts, and I was heavily focused on these 10 standards at the time, learning them in 201. Are a lot of you in 201 right now? Yeah, so that's kind of like you're just working on even understanding what those 10 standards are and what they mean. But this semester, when I came back to my portfolio, I decided that that was too much and that I wanted to choose a different way to organize. So instead, I picked 10 artifacts, which you can see on the screen right now. Oh, hold on. Okay. I don't see that on here. And so instead of organizing by standard, I organized by those artifacts. So just for example, if you click on the first one, which is project, which you'll do if you take ED 325, which most of you probably will if you're an ELM or ELC. So here, if you click, you'll see my actual student assessment project, which I recommend putting in PDF or using Scribd. Have you guys learned about Scribd? Either way, just because if you have it as a Word document, then every time your assessor clicks on one of your artifacts, they have to open a separate Word document, and it just becomes more cumbersome. So I chose to put it like this, which on your computer opens in a separate window, which is interesting. On mine, it opens in the same. But yeah, so you'll see the actual artifact, which by no means do you need to look at right now. It's lengthy and detailed. But so my assessor can look at that, and then I decided to put the rationale right on the page. So right here, I set the context for my artifact right away. And then I go through and explain how it meets certain Wisconsin teaching standards and also Alverno education abilities. So I've done that. I chose to do 10 that back when I was in your shoes, I had no clue how this would work. I'd seen a few examples of portfolios, and a lot of people organized it by standard and did 2 each, and it just seemed like way too much work for me. And for me, I found that with these 10 artifacts, I can adequately explain, actually probably more than adequately explain, how I meet each of the 10 standards and how I meet each of the abilities. So looking forward, I would just suggest, especially on bigger assignments that you find yourself really proud of, you spend a lot of time on, and you feel like they really demonstrate your growth as a teacher, that you would maybe jot down on them, like this meets standards 1, 3, and 5, or this, I really used my abilities of diagnosis on this, and even just put a post-it note on there, because someone suggested that to me back in 201 maybe, and I did not do that. And I still did fine, and I'm really proud of my portfolio, but it's nice to be able to just look and say, here's my literacy plan, and wow, I definitely noticed that standard 5 was, a focus of my literacy plan, and then right away you can use that, and it'll save you time in the long run. And it also helps you to really understand the standards, because I'm sure right now they're maybe a little bit overwhelming. Like, you just look at the list and you have these 10 standards, and what do they mean, and how will I ever use them all? But you will. And so if you just take a moment in each semester to step back and really say how you were using them each semester, it'll help you when it comes to portfolio time. So that's one big suggestion that I have. As far as the rest of my portfolio, there's some things that you have to do, which will come later, but I don't know if you can put this on their Moodle or something. I don't mind if you guys check out my portfolio, and especially you could read my my letter to a beginning education student, because that is you, and really writing it was almost emotional for me, because I was I remember being in your shoes and having someone read that letter to me, and I was like, whoa, what are they even talking about? But I just felt like I put a lot of heart into my letter, and it might be beneficial for someone to read it. So yeah, I just can't say enough to stay organized as you go through all of your semesters. I know I have some colleagues now who are struggling to find certain things that they need, or not sure what to put on there. So really just keep your stuff organized. Slap post-it notes on, have a file. Like I had just a folder where I put important things that I knew I needed to keep, so that now this semester I just opened up that keep folder and, oh, there was my, a cooperating teacher evaluation, and there was other things I needed. So just whatever works for you. If you have a flash drive that you want to put important documents on, just stay organized, because it's really, really important when it comes to portfolio time.
And I would say the other thing that's linked to that is that increasingly as people are using Moodle and Educator and giving you feedback electronically, is to maybe keep a printout, like a PDF print, either print screen or printout of the feedback you get. If there's something having to do with a major assignment, sometimes people will upload like a PDF or a Word document as your feedback. But if that's not the case, then in future semesters you may not have access to that feedback. So it's good to keep not only a record of your examples, but the feedback that
I'm going to agree completely, because on our directions for portfolio, it said, include the things you're going to include and then feedback where applicable. And for many things, I was able to find feedback in a couple instances where the teacher didn't even digitize their feedback. Some teachers just aren't there yet and are more, comfortable writing. Like, keep that document, scan it into the computer, save it, because there's a couple instances where I don't have some feedback, which isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it would be great to have looked back and saw that feedback. But here's an example of just something that I did for Nancy A's class, and she is great about her. Really? Okay, yeah, she is great about her feedback, and I was actually able to go on the DDP and find a lot of my feedback there because the teachers have to upload it. But again, time saver would be to just keep it with your things as you go along. So that is something major that I've definitely learned. Something that I just think is cute to share, and I don't know why I can't highlight this. Like for each of my field placements or field experiences, I took photos with my students, and I think that that's just something fun to have on my portfolio to really show. Like the second one's kind of a silly picture that I had with them, just to to give my assessors a view of like, this is me in the classroom, and it shows like the rapport that I built with my students. And instead of just being a bunch of documents for someone to read, like they can see some pictures and just have a little bit more insight into who I am.
There is an aesthetic component.
Yeah.
Remember when Stephanie was here last week and she was showing us the letters she got from her students? Like, to think about, what would you want to read or what would you want to see? Remember that the people who are eventually looking at either your student teaching candidacy portfolio or the multimedia representations of your teaching, like with Jennifer Myers, she's speaking to teachers. That's why those teachers across the world resonated with her, because they're also teachers. What they're interested in is being with kids and helping them learn. All of your portfolio assessors are former or active teachers. So, it's like keeping in mind who your audience is important.
Yes, I can. Which thing? It shows I was a peer advisor here at El Verno College for 2 semesters. So those certificates are the certificates that I received at the end of my semester as a volunteer. I chose to highlight volunteer experiences. This is an extra page. This is something that isn't required by the directions of the portfolio, but something that I wanted to definitely showcase was different things that I've done volunteer-wise. So I saved certificates and stuff like that. Because again, I could have just typed, I was a peer advisor, and that would have gotten my point across that I was a peer advisor. But like she was saying, aesthetically and stuff, I thought it would be better to include the certificate because it's something to show. And the service also speaks to standard time. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Katie.
Yeah, no problem.
Fabulous. Let me turn off Camtasia.
All right. So wait.